Brian? Okay, it's 4:41 and I'll call the meeting to order. We have a forum, but who is absent? Sakina McClinton and Chris Gant are absent. Okay, we have a motion to. Folks don't have to do that.
No.
All right, so here we go. Number one, introduction of our new city representatives, and welcome to City Administrator Joseph Donat.
Hey, Joe.
Glad to be here.
Nice to have you. So you're replacing Brian Martinez
Correct.
on the board and in the city?
Brian was never the city administrator. He was only the commissioner of finance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The city's going to be reverting back to having the city administrator sit on the board.
Okay,
I think prior to Brian, we had the city administrator and Brian jumped on at Mark's request and we're
okay,
reverting back
Brian actually came up when Mark was leaving. So
Right.
at Mark's request. Yeah.
Right. And Brian is staying on the IMA working group for a while or not? I
So
know.
we're still trying to figure that one out, but yeah.
Okay, all right, because we're not going to meet this Friday. We're going to wait a week or two
Okay.
to try to move some things along. before
I know
we meet
Joe
again, so we can
Vita's-
clarify that.
Joe Vita's certainly going to be on it.
Okay,
And
Great.
Bill Brady, I believe, are certainly going to still remain.
that's great. And sorry to be here late. Barb, you're running the meeting today because Chris is not here. Awesome.
and city council member Sakina McClinton is coming in a few minutes.
She is.
Okay.
That would be nice to meet her, so we'll say hi when she gets here. Number two, public participation. We have two people. Dory?
Thank you. Yeah, I just have some meeting minute comments. The meeting minutes say February 3rd, 2024, the title is 2025. Number two says that the February 2024 meeting minutes were approved. That was actually the January 6th, 2025 meeting minutes that were approved. Number five, the budget status says 91% into the year with 82% spent. So that's obviously not the right month's report.
yeah, that should have been.
That's it.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Shanks, the Executive Director for the Dutchess County Board of Fiscal 3 College.
We'll see.
You would recognize him, right? It's in your name. Like, I know that guy.
Pretty sure that was you.
Yeah, I'm like, I know him. I can't picture, don't picture his name.
again.
Didn't see him too, but you keeping Keating busy or what?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
All right, so after the changes, looking at February 3rd, 2025 minutes.
Can I make one more change under flow study?
Yeah.
I don't think that I said that we need to understand why flow is increasing based on population data, but we just need to understand why flow is increasing. And that might have to do with population, but it might have to do with other things, and we need to understand the broader, So if we can just end that sentence is we need to understand why flow is increasing. Because my whole point was that population data isn't telling us why flow is increasing. So we need to know what the deal is.
I think it was because the issue was the population wasn't increasing with the flow was.
Yep,
And I thought that we reflected in that, we talked about that. Yeah, I got it.
yep.
And
We
next,
just-
my next meeting, I'm gonna have a solid number of what the water loss is for us.
Oh, good.
So what we're coming in versus what's been getting built. So we're working on that today. So
That's very,
that'll give a more accurate number for a couple different reasons.
Does anybody see any other changes to the minutes? Okay. So does anyone else make a motion to approve those changes?
so moved.
And any second?
I'll second it.
Thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Randy, when you're ready, plan status report, please.
Since I looked at yesterday, I looked at this last Friday, so I didn't get all the months, but I did show that the flows that turbidities and that's what it is. We're typical winter weather right now. The turbidities are low turbidity in the river, and the flow is good. You'll note that we're still increasing our flows. Like last month, the average flow was January 12.76, this month 13.31. So what I did at the bottom there is I put a graph of the numbers from 2016 through 2024 on average, max, and minimum on their days. So you can see the top line and the average that's gone up. The middle line, you see the big jump starting in 2016. We started going up pretty high for the city, and but that's just for that floor for the year.
That's for the full year,
That's for the
maximum, minimum, and average for the year.
Yeah. And then we're working with Hudson Valley Electric to get that change order through. It came at the end of the project, but months after it was done. They said that we have change orders that should have been adjusted, should have been submitted, so they have submitted them and we're finalizing them this month. Good, we did get, we have been getting to continue with our power containment program, so when the power, there's a big demand on the system, the electric, our people will call us and say, hey, can you shut down for 4 hours? And we do that. We've got a JMI is our consultant, and this month we got a check for $31,421.83. And what it does is basically we run off the storage and it doesn't affect operation at all. And we get, the check, we've gotten anywhere between $25,000 and $55,000 for a year. So it's a good thing. And then the filter drain, under drain replacements moving on. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ongoing project that we've been updating is the filter under drain. I think the last time I had sent a note with 2 images of our successful field trip to the Lake Gillard facility, where also one of the vendors that we're generally specifying around attended as well. One of the things that they pointed out is that there will be a few modifications to the structure itself, just the fill area. So we're waiting for their final. They actually send us drawings and then we incorporate them. So by the next meeting, there will be draft design, but we are pretty close to, if you recall, we executed a total of $70,000 to get us to the sort of the preliminary 30% stage. And we're just about there with the status of our drawings. So we'll have nice draft drawings to look at that show the full scope. However, so then that's from the technical perspective, but from a funding perspective, we try to get our there's a list of items that EFC just confirmed today. They have not sent to anyone. We are on the drinking water state revolving fund list. This project is approved for that, but they did not send anyone the missing item list. So we will have things to gather, such as the engineering contract with the scope, the updated adoptable notices, but I'm just going off the top of my head because they haven't sent us the letter. So who we're working with agreed Kate to send us, Kate Green, the updated letter so we can start gathering it. And then I will be communicating. As soon as I have the letter, I'll be communicating to everyone what you need to get me so we can close on this loan. So I don't know what the board's preference, meaning city and town's preference, is to keep progressing this design to the final drawing stage without having that funding available for reimbursement on a monthly basis, which is what EFC tends to do. I don't know that we need to solve this at this moment, but probably by next month's meeting, we should have a decision on how we're gonna proceed with that. That task order that was authorized, I will be redistributing a modified version because at that point we hadn't agreed to accept the financing. So we'll be accepting the standard terms and conditions for EFC, which are mandatory to be able to qualify for the loan funding. And then there's a little bit of additional cost beyond managing the EFC, but then also as a result of that field trip, we know we need to modify the air tubes, the air scour piping, and so there's a little bit of additional design, but it's pretty pretty small increase. But either way, that updated task order. The majority of the increase actually is because we need WMDE compliance, so we do have now a woman-owned business associated with the project who is going to be providing some services during construction observation. So that's updated. I haven't sent that yet because I need to reference our date of her signed contract, which does not exist yet. So gonna get this executed and then I will be able to provide that updated task order. But we are, I think we're within $7,000 or so, or that $70,000 budget, which will get us to some good draft drawings, but then we just need to decide where to go.
Before we go on with number 5, operating budget status, I just want to pause here and welcome Sakina and Clinton.
Thank you. It was my first time in this building. It was a little difficult to find, but I'm glad I found it.
You didn't jump into like a physics class and.
No, almost.
They used to say our address is 3431 North Road. You put that in your Google, you never find it. But they, when during the 9/11 stuff or 911 calls, they sent me a letter saying your address is now 71 North Road. And they gave us addresses. Put that in your Google and you'll find this place. Well, that works in so many ways. It uses everybody, you know. It's one address for 100 years, but now you got it.
Yeah. Do you know what everybody here at the table would know? Should we do?
I know him.
I'm Barbara Laird. I am the town board in Town of Poughkeepsie.
I'm Donnie Denobly. I'm the current lab director here.
Randy Allstat, one of the managers.
Erin Moore from Pie and Bond. I'm the board's consulting engineer.
Dylan Harris from Whiteman, Osterman and Hannah. I'm board's attorney.
Tom Colgan, Board Superintendent for Town of Poughkeepsie.
Rebecca Edwards, Town Supervisor, Town of Poughkeepsie.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I could just follow up with that, it's something that you're in conversation with the field trip and other things about the failure of these filters, right? It seems like it's a problem, not just here, but in other places as well. The specific manufacturer of these filters, they just didn't last the way that people expected them to. They're not exactly still under warranty, I'm sure,
No.
but
They're about, and they'd probably say their service life.
That's what I say. What was the service life on?
Yeah,
well, that's the question I wanted to ask.
2004. Yeah, so they're 20-year service life. That now, what we're proposing is stainless steel. It's going to greatly exceed 20-year service life. So
Over 25.
Do we know what the service life will look like on the new equipment?
I will ask but the issue is they've never taken any out of service. So the manufacturer has made them, but then it's stainless steel under drains. So they say, well, we've never had to remove any. So that's what.
Well, that's a good start.
Yeah.
Right there.
Maybe
And
the
how long
longest
have
one
they,
that they
like, what's the longest
Oh.
one, how long have they been putting these in would be interesting to know.
I'll get
Helpful,
that
right?
explicitly, but it's certainly more than 30 years.
And what is their contract going to say also about replacing those and, if they need replacement?
No one will give us, but it is a pretty good warranty. I forget how many years, but no one's giving us a 20-year warranty.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't exist for us. So.
We talked about the warranty.
Yeah, it's-
Payment and they would replace it, after certain.
Yeah, I feel like it's more than, it's between 5 and 10, is what I recall. I'll look up
Beyond
explicitly.
what industry standard was.
Yeah, it's pretty healthy. It's very consistent what's causing the failure. It's just a weak point of flex. It's the material itself isn't breaking down. It's just, I don't know how the forces under the use during backwash and other procedures. It's not a strong mechanical connection.
So a lot of places are experiencing this failure, but just for everybody who's joining the conversation, it's not as if we installed them a year ago or anything.
Oh,
They're
no.
they're basically at end of life, but they're ending their life in a more dramatic fashion than people probably.
Dramatic.
Yeah,
Hopefully they won't do it in any other filter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So one filter did fail. Yeah.
And our guys got to replace that, repair that filter in place. But the concern is that we've had them for 20 years and now we're finding out that this is happening all over the country, that the second grades are failing after 20 years. So therefore, they had to be forwarded and move forward. And so we went to an emergency with the city to get things going. And it's been still, it takes time. So we're still working on it.
Well, and it took a while to schedule getting the plant staff there. And we made sure it coincided with an active replacement project going on. So we went to the Regional Water Authority in Connecticut, who has an active project. So the plant staff could see not only Dottie came, and then also not here, but Joe and Brian, who have unfortunately been a lot involved when they fail. They've been the ones like down in the pit digging it up. We just really thought that was important, that the plant staff see these, be able to speak to the operators. And so that happened. And as soon as that happened, we just realized we had to make a design decision based on this air scour pipe. We had that decision, and now we're just waiting on the vendor to produce these drawings. But it took a bit to get all the pieces, but we're really glad right?
Yeah.
It was a really valuable trip. So,
Right.
so now we're back rolling, but I think seeing it, everyone understood what we're talking about, going to be installed, and ask a good question.
It's always helpful to see another plant and see what's going on there and, have the comparisons. Can we just also go back over the EFC funding? We have a loan.
We have a loan. We do not have. I don't know what's the right person to complain about this. It's not me. I'm not going to be affected, but I feel like it's not appropriate that we don't have a 0% loan. But I voiced that concern to them twice and was told, no, this is it. You're joint. So if the town doesn't have the MHI below, then the city shouldn't get it. And that sounds like, I don't know what to say about that, but I disagree with that. Regardless, it is subsidized, but it is market rate loan, right? To produce this funding, and we are on the IUP, the intended use plan that is open again. So if we need to just confirm our interest, we will do so. But at this point, they know we want a loan. They have us down as a priority to fund for the loan, and but Kate just noted that yes, so they have not sent us the missing item list, so we're able to close. So she said she would get back to us.
And that's EFC.
That's EFC, yes.
That's where it stands.
That's why I'm working off memory on what I think is going to be in the missing item, like things that are always there, but we don't have a specific missing item list for this particular project.
Anything else? Okay, number 5, operating budget status.
I did give you a report as of the 28th. Everything is in line is what we expect at this time of the year. The purchase orders have been set up for the requirements that we have. At this point, there's nothing really out of the ordinary. One of the things that happened was we had budgeted for a work utility vehicle, which is basically an alternative balance and tools in it. And that came in more expensive than it was last year. So we had to move a little money to get the money for that. Back in, we thought it would be 68,000, and came in at 71,596. But that's all taken care of.
Project status number 6.
Before we move on, sorry, Barb, it's my job to slow the meeting down over here today. I'm sorry. We used to have a column with percentages.
Yeah.
Will that kick in later in the year or?
It'll be the next one.
Okay, great.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. That'd be great. Thanks.
So now project status 1.
Okay, so we talked about filter replacement at one point. What I want to do is talk about what is in the foreseen future. So the first thing we got for filter underground replacement, that's $4.2 million. That we have budgeted for that. The next one is the GSST. That's the mixed tank for the sludge. That TSST, we did a preliminary design for that. The preliminary design came back with a budget for 2.97690 million. Last year, because the under drain came up, it was decided to postpone that until this year. I think the town did some approval on that for their bonding, but I don't think it's gone through the city, and the question is, where are we gonna go with that? So if we're gonna move forward with that this year, as the ESC funding goes out, if that's where we're gonna go with it, we need to make a decision whether we want to move that forward. The tractor replacement, we had budgeted last year for a trailer replacement this year. What happened was the tractor came to be a more important part of Orient. So we did the tractor, and that came in at
178.
178,300. So the question becomes, that bid is active right now. We just received the bid. The thought was that we were going to have the extra money for capital based upon our capital budget, and that money would be used for that. We need to make a decision if we're going to go forward with that. The thing is necessary. We talked about it. We talked about taking it out for the tractor or for the trailer. So that's something we can do. Would be good to act on. Then the next one was the trailer replacement. We postponed that this year, and now it still needs to be done. So we're looking at that. We did get the low budget bid on that. We had 2 bids for that. The low bid was 101,704. So there's nothing to do on that.
But that'll have to be rebid again.
It'll have
Going to
be
next
rebid
year.
again once we get.
At least you have a pretty solid number to,
Yeah.
you could add some for,
Yeah, 3-5%.
Exactly.
So, and then the last thing that I want to talk about was the flow study conceptual design. And I think I'd like to let Erin go for that because she put together an RFQ.
So based on each response I got after, I know I missed you all last month, what I've developed is like a sample scope to what that would include. Specifically, item 1 is description of existing flows, loadings, including historical trends, identification of factors historically driving flow increases, population development, water cells, etc. Correlation should be demonstrated that indicate a relationship between historic flow increases and the sources of demand. Is that okay?
Yes.
Because I think based on scope and the scope that was advertised, the flow study that's been provided to the board was what was asked for, but it left this gray area of what is the drive for here, for this plant, what is your driving factor?
And that study is now being revised? We did go back and ask them additional questions, right?
Yeah, we did, but I'm not sure there's going to be how much coming back. I think it's pretty much considered done. We agree that we need the number to go forward, and that we agreed that they did the study. It wasn't, I mean, Erin came back and said, was it reasonable? And she thought that it was what the amount of work was. There's still things left out, but it was difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult getting the information from the city and town as far as the things that you were concerned about. But it's obvious that we need to go to do an expansion of some sort to meet future demands.
We're just
So-
not gonna get it out of those
Right.
engineers.
I really don't think that flow study got us very useful information. And maybe that's just the way it went. And I wish that, I know we did ask them more questions, and I wish we'd been able to push a little more to get a little more value for what we spent on that. But I agree that we need to go forward with something different, because to my mind, they did not demonstrate the cause of, the bottom line was, sorry, with no, okay?
I'm fine.
Okay, good. That
Need a full study on that chair.
there's a tension between, projections about population and projections about water use, and it's not clear why water use is increasing. And anyway, we need further study one way or another. But I wish we had gotten more out of that study that we did. So
It's something that maybe in retrospect with the 5 years before, we could have teased out, but definitely the way they approached the flow study is how we would have approached, you typically, population very much so is typically the overall driving factor. So for them to come in it and be assuming it's a population-based impact, I think we know now though, and we possibly could have observed this, last time, I think you've improved from the previous one, in my opinion, but it's so, because it's very clear now, there's some question as to what really are the historical factors that can contribute to increased flows here, but it's definitely not a obvious population-driven analysis.
Well, Randy's numbers, his chart that he gave us today is really interesting because the maximum high is higher, but the maximum low is actually also lower. So are we looking at more, is it seasonally driven or I just?
What
Very-
happens is that we operate to make water move the reservoir. And because of that, we'll operate at a high rate for a period of time, then we'll operate at a low rate period of time. And there may have been, for instance, we had to say a 6-hour shutdown on the day we go for a low rate. Then the next day we have to fill, so then it's much high.
But then you go summertime where it's real hot, like we're pumping hard constantly. Like it's continuous.
Yeah.
It seasonally tremendously affects it. Eventually, when it gets dry in May, them numbers climb up on the gallons a month.
So the average number may matter more than the
Yeah.
average and the max. The average and the max may matter more than the minimum.
And what we've done and what I did.
We should just make it out.
Good job. Was what we look at maybe three days in a row average versus the 1 day average. Rather than report the high day, maybe report the high for the average on 3 days.
Right.
Because that flattens it out a little bit.
Okay.
So maybe that should look at that.
Okay.
You said we need a decision, so we're gonna vote on the tractor replacement today.
That'd be great.
Can I ask what the 215,000, you mentioned 178? But there's also,
We had 2 bids.
okay, so,
And I just want to say we did have 2 bids.
okay.
And we got one for 215, so we need a decision on, we want to go for low bid and then that we can move with that.
You have copies of the bids we got in or?
I gave them out before I could do it.
So where are we on the conceptual designs?
I think this is quite an effort that you're, so
What we're at right now is we need to go out for proposals, for request for qualifications. And then we need to move forward as far as that. I think we did ask them for an estimate of the cost. Does that work?
I'll have to, but I think you're
We're gonna have
right
to come
now.
up, yeah.
Yeah, because I think scope should involve, it was brought up, like looking at siting. Is this the site? Is there another site that should be considered? So you're gonna be looking for, and we can talk about, not only technical competency, but planning effort as well, so I can help coordinate on what that should be, but there's definitely a planning exercise here beyond
It's,
an engineering exercise.
It's a huge planning exercise. And there's a
Yes.
couple of really, really big questions about, there's a bunch of big questions and it impacts the IMA conversation that's going on, which I sort of feel like is a kind of ever ending, like an ever receding horizon because we need to know, like, if in fact the future 15 or 20 years from now looks like 2 separate plants in 2 different locations. That's a whole different scenario than adding on to this site here. And I know there's just a whole bunch of questions there that
Probably adding onto this site here, you might run out of real estate to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's your biggest, because over the years, as the additions have gone on, you're trying to maximize your footprint of everything you have here and you're gonna run out of space to do that.
Absolutely. Which raises the question of if in fact we're looking at, if we think that demand is going to require 2 plants, then that raises a whole bunch of questions.
Well, that or you have one large plant in order to do it, that we don't have twice the amount of operating costs, especially with 2 plants.
Right? Exactly. But that means we shut this plant down and start completely over in another
Well,
location.
no, that means this won't have to run while another one's being built.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then you'd have to see how you repurpose this at the time.
there's a lot to fund.
Yeah, there's a lot to it all.
Yeah. Well,
But then Maris would probably buy us some heartbeat.
Right,
You know,
yeah. No, I don't think there's gonna be any lack of demand for water. I'm just thinking specifically about the IMA structure and about what Aaron just told us about the inability. I mean, I'm speaking for the city's interests more than the town's. The town has the constraints we have demographically on what kind of grants and funding we can get because we're in a different set of demographic and financial categories than the city is. The city is hindered in the joint JWP structure from accessing grants and loans that might be available to the city based on its demographic profile that aren't available to the town. So if that's the direction if that is a direction we're particularly talking in the long run, then the IMA committee should just stop and wait until we know what our options are and think, because that profoundly affects where we might go, what our options are in terms of how we run, right?
Yes.
I mean, none of that may come to pass, but I would hate for us to spend hundreds of hours trying to figure out what our joint agreement looks like based on, and then after all that time go, oh, wait, actually, what we're looking at is a very different looking kind of future.
yeah, but you still have the same responsibility for each party, depending on, where its location would be. So you're still doing, the IMA is the guideline for it all. So, I mean.
Also, this is gonna be a long
Yeah,
process.
yeah.
So I think you need to have a short term.
And the IMA probably get redone before that time comes around again.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping back to the EFC topic. So we can still access Brian for another couple of weeks, is that right?
Brian's retired as of Friday,
Oh, as of this Friday?
this past Friday.
He's got because I can just think of another community right now that got a joint grant and they're closing with both communities separately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Why can't we do
But it depends
this?
on what the city of Poughkeepsie is more likely to get grants than the town of Poughkeepsie because of the wealth of the town. You're correct.
I
Like
know.
what
It all has to do
what
with
the income is, it's all about the money and what
Yeah,
the
but-
city and town have.
But trying to-
creation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's how the board operates. Really, it's just the two separate municipalities that created a board to kind of oversee, but ultimately all the approval goes back to the board. So it has to do with just the
Yeah.
enabling statute.
You're right.
So it
Okay.
does have to be individual. And that was in the IMA research, something that popped up.
It's a problem that we should talk about, right? Because it's a big financial liability, a huge financial liability to the way that we've structured this. I mean, and I don't always know. I mean, the Tri-Muni has explained that they're going to try to run their grant applications through the village of Wappingers Falls because the village is in deep financial distress. Whether they can actually succeed in doing that or not, the village and the town of Poughkeepsie are joint owners on that system. The town of Wappingers is a tenant. So, but they're running everything through the village because of the village's.
Has that panned out?
I don't know,
Oh.
but we should probably know, right?
Yeah, that's
I mean,
what
not yet, but they think they can do that. So there's a set of questions here about how you structure projects like this that are, and how to make them financially advantageous that we really need to understand better. It's just, Dylan, I don't know if you have any background on this or somebody who can tap a kind of, this needs broader, we need to understand comparatively.
Yeah, I can do a little
What
digging
does
on
that
that
look like?
front, because I've got a memo on it that kind of goes just into the enabling statute that created
Yes.
the water board and all of that.
Yeah.
So I was gonna present it when the IMA group
When
meets
we meet.
next, yeah, and I'll try to
Okay.
send it around before.
I think that would be super helpful for us to think about a little bit more.
And I'm not even trying to get a grant. I'm just saying, city of Poughkeepsie should have 0% loan.
Yes.
You should, the city should 100% qualify. It's got EJ areas, it should be, the MHI should be a 0% loan. They're saying, it just doesn't make sense to me.
The town, right.
The city and town both have to bond. The city and town both have to do all of their legal obligations. Why?
Who at EFC is telling you that?
PFC's legal staff, which again, I questioned it 2 or 3 times. But that's why I'm like, who wants to go argue with ESC? And I was like, is Brian still with us for another week?
Brian was
Yeah, he's,
looking into that and was expressing the concern and don't know where it ended up with. That's
Well, I mean, and I don't know if we're joint, then those parts of the town that are, because there are portions of the town, some fairly substantial portions of the town that also qualify. Are they
And that
counting
would
the
be a-
whole area of the city and town together, population wise, like, how are they calculating that?
You could do a rate study. So if they just look at the town MHI, right, for the whole town.
Yep.
Now, if the thought was some portions of the town that also aren't served, it would be so you could do a rate study with not a rate study, an income survey with just the served population. If you thought that would change. If the MHI of the served population, you think would be move the town into a more palatable from funding perspective.
No, because I think the entire town is served.
Okay.
I don't
then
think there's
that-
any
that
portion of the
wouldn't
town that
help.
isn't served by
Okay.
water plant.
Okay.
My question just is that how is it that the town and the city are treated as different entities and the town cancels out the city as opposed to thinking about the whole demographic profile of city and town together, if we both have to,
But
yeah,
I'm just not sure who's the right person to go to
Yep.
this fight or who's got.
never mind.
Yeah.
We can,
Would
I'll
you be
pull
able
that
to reach
memo,
out
look
with
into it, and we can
EFC's
certainly,
legal
if
counsel?
given the orders to argue with the ECF, I'm always, or EFC, I'm always
You're always happy to
Down for
argue with
that,
the
yeah.
EFC.
love
Well,
arguing with the state.
Right, yeah.
Like, it's good, we want, like.
That's why
we
you're
need a
the
bad-
engineer and he's the legal.
Yeah, that's what I'm
right?
saying, we need a bad guy.
But yeah, but
There you go.
the bigger question I'm getting at, and this is an IMA question, is like, are our founding documents, is there a way that our operational documents can be written in a way that addresses that problem? And is there anybody, because it seems to me that these joint projects are kind of apples and oranges and kumquats and bananas, and every single one of them is a little bit different than the others, right? And so
Yeah.
have some people structured their joint partnership in a way that is more advantageous? That's the question.
All right, I can look into that because I know like New Paltz, for example, they just run it, the village and then town each make their decisions, and then there's no actual like board or intermediary that works. And somehow, I don't know how the nuts and bolts work on that front, but that's,
Right.
so we have a list of just in Dutchess County, I think 5 or 6 other similar water situations and how they operate. So that's part of the research we've pulled together.
Dutchess and Ulster sort of in the Hudson Valley.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. That'd be great. Thanks.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the tractor replacement first bid at $178,368. Tommy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can I get it now before the brakes go up?
Okay.
Any old business? Talked a lot. but
We
not a lot.
the trailer replacement, I think, we have to, once we get the driving going, then we can bring that back up in the future. But we really gonna need to do that also.
Well, you plan for that budgetary for next year, probably, I would
Yeah.
think. It's only a couple months away now.
You want
I just need to start all over
the
again.
city did the TSST replacement bonding? You had mentioned
Right
that.
now, no, we would, if we want to go forward with the TSST, we need to go ahead and apply to the EFC for the loan for that. And that would be doing the same normal activity that we would to do to get the loan.
Oh, so that IUP, so the IUP application is open now.
Yeah, so the IUP application is open now, so we would have to file an application
Okay.
for the TSST.
I'm gonna coordinate that.
Where are we gonna go there? That's the problem. I know we're looking at a lot of money coming up right away. The TSST, they've had a new leak in it. It's a little higher than it's like 15 feet up in the air. But it's continuing to form leaks and it's like the roof is concerned that it could actually go down. So it's definitely a needed repair and replacement, but concerned.
You would talk about that for quite a few years too.
Yeah.
And it's not anything new. It's something that, it's been kicked down the hallway a few times, so definitely needs to be addressed.
Is that something Aaron could do?
Do we want to put that on the IMP? and go forward with a request for financing for the, if we do, then okay, we can have Eric do that. Yeah.
Well, we should vote on it, but I think. Sounds like it's been coming up for many years, and if you leave it, there's a hassle, right? If it fails,
Yeah, then it becomes an emergency.
we have an emergency, and then you have to spend the money anyway.
Right.
And hopefully, Stillin figures out this shared finance thing, we could apply it to this too. So, does anybody want to open a motion to,
I make a motion to proceed with which is the RFQ. For the,
This would be for the
Trailer.
application, we've got the preliminary design done. So it would be for the final design.
So this would be
TSS?
for the TSST, we're gonna apply for the whole, same as for the under drain. It's due May 30. So between now. And then. I think you, Tom, usually don't get these emails, but you'll get the new joy. I just start saying, this is what you need, like
Right.
all the things we need to get on the intended use plan. So I'll be distributing that as a big group email to make sure you all have enough time before the board meeting, your respective council or board meetings to get, if you need to bond. You're not gonna need to bond anything, but just get your permission to open and whatnot, however you do your resolution.
Sure.
So we have it in term to submit. The IUP is pretty easy. The next thing that will come up, which we were unsuccessful, one, can try again for WIA for the under drain. And two, we could try for the TSST, depending on what we want to try for.
it is kind of getting into grant season, so you.
It's
get
gonna
every-
come soon,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So you have everything ready to go. You're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah,
I certainly think we should try.
Yeah,
yeah, I know we debriefed about it with them and they had no complaints. They said it was a great application and everything was there. It just was the MHI that booted the project at a, but so WIA will be coming. It's not open, so I have no date, but it will be coming. Right.
All in favor?
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Sorry,
So I've got that, the IUP for the TSST.
please tell me.
No problem.
Well, there was still conversation. We gotta vote and it passed to me.
I didn't hear it right. I don't know whether,
Second, I seconded it, Tommy.
did we take a vote?
We voted, but all in favor for the TSST joining the IUP?
Aye.
so moving in that direction, we'll go ahead and put out an RFQ for engineers to do that design.
Yes.
Who did the study on that one? Okay, do I have that report?
I think so, but
All right, well,
I sent it out with, I sent that report out, I think with the minutes.
okay, I'll just, the only thing, we just need to make sure it's in EFC approved format to be able
Yeah.
to respond to the EO, so.
You use CPL for a lot of things?
We used to, they were the board engineer.
Engineer,
Okay.
previous years, now we have timeline. We do not have any activities going on with stuff to be on this time.
Good to know. Thank you.
Do I need to do a motion in a second of vote for the upgraded?
I think I better edit it and distribute it to include qualifications.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and
we're gonna go
the,
for RFQ for the TSST.
oh yeah, you do that, yeah,
Then we got the RFQ for the flow study. Those two RFQs are gonna go.
Okay, but I don't need to make another.
I think we don't. Okay.
I think the town and the city need clear information about how much funding is required here and on what basis, right, for these projects, right? Where are we how much each of us is borrowing, how much is each, how much funding is needed.
So the numbers for the filter underdrain replacement, that's based upon the engineer's budget estimate. And that's 4.2 million. The city or town are basically 45. So you can get that split. And the same thing, the TSST replacement, that's the engineer's preliminary design. and that's the budget estimate.
Right.
So those are the numbers you split 45 into 5.
So what's the mechanism by which this board recommends to the city and the town to pay in for those expenditures, right? Because we can't actually spend, this board can't spend that money until it comes in from the city and town. So that mechanism has to be in place. In other words, we have to have this in front of the town board and the city board as part of capital planning and as part of everything else. What are our anticipated expenses here? And the city and town have to authorize those funds before they can be borrowed or spent, right?
Right. And we did the studies to come up with those numbers.
Yep.
And they've been given to the city and town. And then
How have they
the
been
city
given
and
to the city and town?
I've never seen them.
town- Yeah, but they've been going through the board members. You know, as the board members, we represent the city and town. And I can only tell you what we need to do and what the costs are. We've done that. It's the city and town that put together the financing.
Yes, but that's not we need a more formal mechanism than just some of us are board members of the city and town. And so we see these numbers and we're like, maybe Dylan, you can help us.
Do a
We
resolution
need,
from the board.
right, we need, this board needs to recommend to the city and town boards,
Right.
this is the total amount that needs to be borrowed. Or if this, it's up to the city and town whether they're gonna borrow or whatever, but this is what's needed and when it's needed. So that can be folded into our capital planning. Otherwise, the money's not gonna show up here unless there's a vote there, two votes there. And that can be a little bit of a time consuming process. So we gotta, you know, I don't think we can assume that Barb and I are taking this back to the town board.
Okay, that's
and-
right.
Right? We
Right.
gotta have a
That's
a
very true.
resolution. a
That's
formal.
very accurate.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Maybe everything will go a little smoother with signing all that other stuff we were talking about.
Yeah.
It's,
There's a
see
Yes.
resolutions and it doesn't get lost, because everything's in email and it's how to find those communities.
The city and the town are probably gonna have different processes for that too, but we should figure out who needs to get copied on that draft resolution. Right.
Okay.
Now we're ready for old business, yes.
I think that was all.
You have any more?
That was all of it.
I am limited to 5:30 for this meeting today. If we're pretty close.
Bring this up, we could go past 5:30. So you might let him go.
Any new business? Right, our next meeting is April 7th at 4:30.
1:30, everybody.
Yeah.
4:30. Don't be late.
30.
I know where it's at.
Here.
The last time
I sat on this board. Town hall.
And
It wasn't there.
just
So-
I was like, oh,
Here's my question. We want everyone to execute this, right? Should I just say?